It is often mistaken for depth, for insight, for being mentally sharp, but in reality it is the mind running without direction. Intelligence moves toward clarity. Overthinking circles confusion. Intelligence simplifies. Overthinking complicates. When energy has no container, it spills everywhere, and the mind begins to mistake motion for progress. A sharp mind knows where to place attention. An overthinking mind places attention everywhere except where it is needed. Thoughts multiply not because they are meaningful, but because there is no inner structure to hold them. Like water without a vessel, mental energy spreads, leaks, and evaporates. The person feels busy inside yet accomplishes very little. Exhaustion follows, not because life is demanding, but because the mind is constantly active without purpose. A managed energy always seeks expression. If it is not directed through action, it turns inward. If it is not grounded in the body, it lives in imagination. This is why overthinking often increases during stillness, late at night, or moments of uncertainty. The body is idle, but the energy remains awake. With nowhere to go, it becomes thought. Thought turns into stories. Stories turn into worry. Worry turns into identity. Many people believe they overthink because they are deep thinkers or emotionally aware. In truth, depth is quiet. Awareness is spacious. The truly intelligent mind does not race. It observes. Overthinking is closer to anxiety than insight. It is a sign that the mind is trying to solve emotional discomfort with logic, and logic is not designed for that task. The mind was never meant to process everything. It was meant to focus, decide, and release. When release does not happen, accumulation begins. Unfinished emotions, unspoken boundaries, suppressed anger, unmet needs all convert into repetitive thought. The mind keeps returning to the same loops because the underlying energy has not been discharged. Thinking becomes a substitute for action, for confrontation, for change. This is why advice like, just stop thinking, never works. You cannot suppress energy. Suppression increases pressure. The more you try to silence the mind without managing the energy beneath it, the louder it becomes. Overthinking is not a discipline problem of thought. It is a discipline problem of life. It reflects how a person handles fear, uncertainty, responsibility, and choice. When energy is managed, the mind becomes calm without force. When the body moves, the mind settles. When decisions are made, thoughts dissolve. When boundaries are set, mental noise decreases. Overthinking thrives in indecision. Every unresolved choice keeps energy suspended. The mind keeps revisiting it, hoping repetition will create certainty. It never does. Intelligence is the ability to see clearly and act decisively. Overthinking delays action in the name of preparation. It waits for perfect certainty, perfect timing, perfect outcomes. But life does not operate on perfection. It operates on movement. The intelligent mind understands this. It gathers enough information, then commits. Overthinking gathers endlessly and commits to nothing. There is also an emotional component that is often ignored. Overthinking is frequently rooted in fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of being wrong. The mind keeps analyzing to avoid pain. It believes that if it can predict every outcome, it can protect the self. But constant prediction is exhausting. Protection turns into paralysis. Energy that could be used to build, create, or connect is trapped in mental rehearsal. A managed mind accepts uncertainty. It does not need to control every variable. It trusts its ability to respond rather than its ability to predict. This trust is not arrogance, it is stability. Overthinking reveals a lack of inner trust. The mind does not trust the self to handle consequences, so it keeps running scenarios in an attempt to gain safety through anticipation. The solution is not more thinking, but better containment of energy. Structure calms the mind. Routine grounds it. Physical discipline gives energy an outlet. Silence teaches the mind that it does not need to comment on everything. When life is ordered, thoughts fall into place naturally. Chaos inside often mirrors chaos outside. When a person learns to manage energy, thinking becomes precise. Thoughts arrive when needed and leave when their task is done. There is space between them. In that space, clarity appears. Decisions feel lighter. The mind stops fighting itself. What once felt like intelligence was actually noise, and what now feels like simplicity is true mental strength. Overthinking fades when energy is directed toward purpose. When attention is anchored in the present task. When emotions are felt instead of analyzed. When action replaces rumination. The mind was never meant to be a battlefield. It was meant to be a command center. When energy is unmanaged, the command center turns into chaos, but when energy is disciplined, Intelligence reveals itself not as constant thought, but as quiet readiness, steady focus, and the ability to move forward without needing to explain everything to oneself every step of the way. Thoughts do not linger because they are important. They linger because something remains unresolved within the body. The mind is often blamed for restlessness, but the root is usually physical and emotional tension that has nowhere to go. When the body holds on, the mind speaks on its behalf, repeating the same messages again and again, hoping to be heard. The body is the first place experience is stored. Before a thought forms, the body reacts. Muscles tighten, breath shortens, the nervous system shifts into alertness. If that reaction is not completed, if the emotion is not allowed to move through, it becomes trapped. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Over time, this stored tension becomes background noise, and the mind translates that noise into repetitive thinking. Many people believe they are thinking too much about the past or the future. In reality, the body is still living in a moment that never fully ended, a conversation that was never finished, an emotion that was never expressed, a boundary that was never set. The body remains in a state of readiness, and the mind keeps replaying scenarios, searching for resolution that can no longer be found in thought alone. This is why logic often fails to calm the mind. You can understand something intellectually and still feel restless. You can forgive mentally and still feel tightness in the chest. You can tell yourself to move on, yet your thoughts keep returning. The mind has moved forward, but the body has not. Until the body releases, the mind cannot rest. The nervous system plays a quiet but powerful role in this cycle. When the body perceives threat, whether real or emotional, it prepares to act. Fight, flight, or freeze. If action is taken, the cycle completes. If action is suppressed, the energy stays. Modern life encourages suppression. We sit still when we want to move. We stay silent when we want to speak. We smile when we want to resist. The body learns to hold. Held energy does not disappear. It transforms into tension, fatigue, and thought loops. The mind begins to circle the same memories, the same worries, the same imagined conversations. It is not trying to torture you. It is trying to discharge what the body is still carrying. Thought becomes a substitute for movement, expression, and release. This is why overthinking often decreases after physical activity. Walking, stretching, breathing deeply. Even shaking the body can quiet the mind more effectively than analysis. Movement allows the nervous system to complete what it started. The body exhales what it has been gripping. When the body feels safe to let go, the mind stops insisting. Emotional release follows the same principle. Tears, anger, laughter, and even silence have physical components. When emotions are judged or avoided, the body holds them. The mind then keeps returning to the source, replaying events in an attempt to feel what was denied. Suppressed emotion does not fade with time. It fades with expression. Many people confuse control with strength. They believe holding themselves together means not reacting, not feeling, not showing vulnerability. Over time, this control turns into rigidity. The body becomes tight. The breath becomes shallow. The mind becomes noisy. What was meant to create stability instead creates internal pressure. True regulation is not suppression. It is completion. The body needs to finish what it starts. A deep breath needs a full exhale. A startled response needs grounding. A hurt needs acknowledgement. When these processes are interrupted, the mind keeps the record open. The mind repeating is not a failure of willpower. It is feedback. It is a signal that something in the body is unresolved. Instead of fighting the thoughts, one must listen beneath them. Where is the tension held? What sensation keeps returning? What emotion has not been allowed to move? Awareness brought to the body begins the release the mind has been demanding. Stillness can also be misunderstood. Many sit quietly and expect the mind to calm, but stillness without safety can intensify repetition. The body must feel secure before it lets go. Slow breathing, grounded posture, and gentle attention signal safety. Only then does the body loosen its grip and the mind follows. When the body releases, thoughts lose their charge. Memories become neutral. Worries lose urgency. The same events may be remembered, but they no longer pull attention. The mind stops repeating because the message has been received and the energy has moved on. Mental peace is not achieved by mastering thoughts, but by befriending the body, listening to its signals, allowing its rhythms, giving it movement, rest, and expression. When the body is allowed to complete its cycles, the mind no longer needs to remind, replay, or repeat, because what was once trapped has finally been released and nothing remains to be carried forward into the next moment. Analysis works within thought, while awareness stands outside it. When the mind is caught in loops, trying to analyze them is like attempting to extinguish fire with more fire. Awareness does not argue with thoughts, explain them, or judge them. It simply sees them. That seeing alone breaks the momentum. Most people are trained to analyze. From an early age, they are taught to think harder, figure things out, understand causes and consequences. Analysis has its place in problem solving and planning, but it becomes ineffective when applied to mental noise. Overthinking cannot be solved by better thinking because the tool being used is part of the problem itself. Awareness is different. It does not try to fix, it observes. The moment you become aware that you are thinking, you are no longer completely inside the thought. A small distance appears. In that distance, choice returns. The thought may still be present, but it no longer owns your attention in the same way. Thought feeds on identification. When you believe every thought is you or about you, it gains authority. Awareness removes that authority. It reveals thoughts as events, not truths. They arise, linger, and pass. Just like sensations in the body or sounds in the environment, seeing this directly weakens their grip more effectively than any explanation ever could. Analysis asks, why? Awareness asks nothing. Analysis searches the past and the future. Awareness stays in the present. Analysis wants resolution. Awareness allows unfolding. Because of this, awareness operates at a deeper level. It does not chase clarity, it creates space, and clarity emerges naturally within that space. The speed of awareness is often underestimated. People assume change requires long reasoning, deep insight, or emotional breakthroughs. In reality, awareness acts instantly. The second you notice tension in your jaw, your shoulders soften. The moment you notice your breath is shallow, it deepens. No analysis is required. The body responds immediately to being seen. The same applies to the mind. The moment you notice a repetitive thought, its intensity decreases. You are no longer unconsciously feeding it. Attention shifts from content to process. Instead of asking what the thought means, you see that thinking is happening. This shift is subtle but powerful. Analysis keeps you engaged with the story. Awareness disengages you from the story without suppressing it. This is why awareness feels freeing while analysis often feels exhausting. One drains energy, the other restores it. Awareness does not demand effort, it requires presence. Many people resist awareness because it feels passive. They believe that if they are not analyzing, they are avoiding responsibility. This is a misunderstanding. Awareness is not avoidance. It is direct contact. It meets experience exactly as it is, without distortion. From that contact, appropriate action becomes clear. When awareness is present, the mind slows on its own. Thoughts space out. Gaps appear. In those gaps, intuition functions. Decisions feel simpler. The mind no longer needs to review every possible outcome. It responds rather than reacts. Analysis fragments experience. It breaks moments into pieces and examines them separately. Awareness unifies experience. It sees the whole. This wholeness is calming because it removes the sense that something is missing or needs to be fixed immediately. Another reason awareness works faster is that it includes the body. Analysis often ignores physical sensation, focusing only on mental content. Awareness notices tightness, warmth, pressure, breath, posture. By including the body, awareness grounds the mind. A grounded mind cannot spiral easily. Awareness also interrupts emotional escalation. When emotions rise, analysis tends to justify or amplify them. Awareness simply notices the sensation of emotion, the heat of anger, the heaviness of sadness, the flutter of anxiety. By feeling rather than explaining, the emotion completes its cycle. It moves through instead of looping. This is not something to believe in conceptually. It is something to experience directly. The next time a thought repeats, do not analyze it. Notice it. Notice how it arises. Notice how long it stays when you do not feed it. This noticing is not effortful. It is a return to simplicity. With practice, awareness becomes a way of living rather than a technique. You catch thoughts early, before they build momentum. You notice tension before it becomes stress. You sense emotional shifts before they turn into reactions. Life feels lighter not because problems disappear, but because the mind no longer carries them unnecessarily. Analysis has a time and place, but it is slow and limited when dealing with inner turbulence. Awareness is immediate. It does not negotiate with thought. It steps out of it. In doing so, it restores the natural quiet that exists beneath mental activity. a quiet that has always been present, waiting only to be noticed rather than explained. Motivation is loud. It arrives with excitement, emotion, and temporary energy. Discipline is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not argue. It simply acts. People often wait to feel motivated before they begin, but silence never comes from waiting. Silence comes from order, and order is the result of discipline. The mind is noisy when it is uncertain. When actions are inconsistent, the mind keeps negotiating. Should I do this now or later? Should I rest or push? Should I quit or continue? Each unanswered question adds another layer of mental noise. Discipline removes these questions by deciding in advance. When the decision is made once and followed daily, the mind no longer needs to debate. Motivation depends on emotion. Emotion fluctuates. Some days there is enthusiasm, other days there is resistance. When action depends on how one feels, inconsistency becomes inevitable. The mind then fills the gaps with guilt, justification, and self-criticism. This inner commentary is what creates noise. Discipline bypasses emotion. It does not ask how you feel. It asks what is required. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the absence of inner conflict. Inner conflict arises when desire and behavior are misaligned. You want peace, but you avoid structure. You want confidence, but you avoid commitment. You want clarity, but you avoid responsibility. Discipline aligns intention with action. When alignment exists, the mind rests. A disciplined routine gives the mind boundaries. Wake time, work time, rest time, movement time. Within these boundaries, the mind relaxes. Without them, it remains alert, always trying to decide what to do next. Decision-making consumes energy. When decisions are reduced through discipline, energy is conserved and quiet emerges naturally. Many believe discipline is restrictive. In reality, lack of discipline is what feels suffocating. When life is disordered, the mind must constantly compensate. It remembers missed tasks, unfinished conversations, neglected responsibilities. Each unfinished matter becomes mental weight. Discipline finishes what it starts. Completion is calming. Motivation seeks reward. Discipline seeks process. Motivation asks, what will I gain? Discipline asks, what must be done? The mind becomes noisy when it is chasing outcomes. It becomes silent when it is absorbed in process. Discipline anchors attention in the present task, not the future result. There is also a physical aspect to discipline. Regular movement, consistent sleep, controlled consumption. The body thrives on rhythm. When the body is regulated, the nervous system settles. A settled nervous system does not provoke excessive thought. Silence begins in the body and rises to the mind. Without discipline, the mind tries to control life through thinking. With discipline, life is controlled through action, and the mind no longer needs to interfere. This is why disciplined individuals often appear calm even under pressure. Their systems are already in place. They do not improvise their values in moments of stress. Discipline also creates trust with the self. Every time you follow through, the mind learns that action will happen without debate. This trust reduces anxiety. Anxiety often comes from uncertainty about one's own reliability. When discipline is present, the mind knows what to expect. Predictability creates safety. Safety creates silence. Motivation burns quickly. Discipline burns steadily. Motivation excites the mind. Discipline quiets it. One stimulates thought, the other reduces it. Over time, reliance on motivation leads to cycles of intensity and collapse. Reliance on discipline leads to stability. Silence does not mean passivity. It means clarity without clutter. A disciplined person still thinks, plans, and reflects, but these activities have boundaries. They do not spill into every moment. There is time to act and time to rest. The mind knows when it is needed and when it can step back. The pursuit of motivation keeps the mind searching. Searching is noisy. Discipline ends the search. The path is already chosen. Each day becomes simpler. Not easier, but simpler. Fewer questions, fewer negotiations, less inner resistance. When discipline is consistent, the mind no longer tries to push or pull behavior. It observes, it supports, it rests. Silence is not forced. It emerges as a side effect of order. Where motivation rises and falls, discipline remains steady and quiet, shaping a life where the mind no longer needs to shout to be heard. The modern mind is overwhelmed not because life is difficult, but because it is crowded. Too many options, too many opinions, too many directions pulling attention at once. What is often called freedom becomes mental burden. The mind was not designed to hold endless possibility. It was designed to choose, commit, and move forward. When choices multiply, clarity diminishes. Each option demands evaluation. comparison, and prediction. The mind tries to calculate outcomes it cannot control. This constant evaluation creates fatigue. Decision fatigue does not always feel like tiredness. It often feels like confusion, hesitation, and overthinking. The mind becomes noisy because it is carrying too many open loops. People assume that more choices create better outcomes. In reality, more choices delay action. Delayed action increases self-doubt. Self-doubt fuels mental noise. A new mind does not come from expanding options, but from reducing them deliberately. Limitation is not loss. Limitation is focus. Fewer choices simplify identity. When everything is possible, nothing is grounded. The mind keeps asking, who should I be? What should I do? What if I choose wrong? This questioning never ends because there is no final answer. When choices are limited, the mind settles into direction. Direction quiets internal debate. Structure removes unnecessary decisions. A set routine removes daily negotiation. Fixed values remove moral confusion. Clear priorities remove distraction. Each removed choice frees mental energy. That energy does not disappear. It becomes presence, attention, and calm. A cluttered environment mirrors a cluttered mind. Objects represent choices. What to wear, what to use, what to keep. Each item pulls attention even unconsciously. Simplifying the physical space reduces the mental load. The mind breathes easier when the environment is clear. The same applies to commitments. Saying yes to everything fractures focus. Every obligation becomes a mental tab left open. The mind jumps from one responsibility to another without rest. Saying no is not rejection. It is containment. Containment allows depth. A new mind is not one that knows everything. It is one that knows what matters. Knowing what matters requires eliminating what does not. This elimination can feel uncomfortable at first. The ego resists limitation because it equates choice with power. In truth, power comes from direction. When choices are reduced, discipline becomes easier, action becomes clearer. The mind stops negotiating and starts executing. Execution builds confidence. Confidence reduces overthinking. The cycle reinforces itself. Fewer choices also create peace because they reduce regret. With too many options, the mind constantly imagines alternate paths. What if I chose differently? What if there was something better? This imagined comparison prevents satisfaction. When choices are limited and intentional, the mind accepts the path it is on. This is not about becoming rigid. It is about becoming decisive. Decisiveness is calming. Indecision is exhausting. A decisive mind rests between actions. An indecisive mind never rests because it is always reconsidering. Social influence multiplies choices further. Opinions, advice, expectations, trends. When too many voices enter the mind, inner authority weakens. Choosing fewer inputs restores sovereignty. Listening less does not make one ignorant, it makes one clear. A new mind is often mistaken for new information. People search for answers, strategies, methods. They accumulate knowledge but feel no calmer. Knowledge without direction increases complexity. Simplicity is what transforms. Reducing choices also teaches responsibility. When options are endless, it is easy to blame circumstances. When options are limited, ownership increases. Ownership strengthens the self. A strong self does not need constant reassurance. Even creativity benefits from limitation. Boundaries focus imagination. Without boundaries, creativity scatters. The same is true for the mind. A contained mind becomes inventive, calm, and effective. The desire for more choices often comes from fear of missing out. But missing out on everything is the cost of trying to keep everything open. Commitment closes doors. Closed doors create stability. Stability creates mental quiet. A new mind does not come from adding more habits, more goals, more possibilities. It comes from subtraction. Fewer goals, fewer distractions, fewer decisions. In that simplicity, attention sharpens, thought slows. The mind finds relief not because life is perfect, but because it is no longer overloaded with unnecessary choice and constant evaluation of paths that were never meant to be taken. Stillness is often misunderstood as inactivity, but it is a form of preparation. It is the act of choosing not to react, not to rush, not to scatter attention. When stillness is practiced intentionally, it sets the tone for everything that follows. The mind carries the quality of the present moment forward. How you meet this moment determines how you meet the next one. Most people move through their days in a reactive state. One stimulus follows another. Messages, thoughts, obligations, emotions. The nervous system never fully settles. In this state, the mind is always behind, always catching up, always responding. Stillness interrupts this pattern. It creates a pause where choice becomes possible. When you practice stillness, Even briefly, the body receives a signal of safety. The breath slows, muscles release, the heart rate steadies. This physiological shift does not disappear when you stand up and resume activity. It lingers. The body remembers calm just as it remembers stress. This memory influences how the next hours unfold. A restless morning often leads to a restless day. A centered morning often leads to a steadier one. Stillness at the beginning of the day acts like a tuning fork. It sets a frequency. Throughout the day, when challenges arise, the system naturally returns closer to that frequency rather than escalating immediately. Stillness also sharpens perception. When the mind is quiet, it sees more accurately. It notices subtle changes in mood, environment, and intention. This awareness prevents small issues from becoming large ones. A calm mind responds early instead of reacting late. Practicing stillness today also reduces mental residue. Each day accumulates impressions, conversations, decisions, frustrations. If these are not processed, they spill into the next day. Stillness allows integration. It gives the mind space to organize, release, and reset. Without it, yesterday's tension becomes today's baseline. Many believe they do not have time for stillness. In truth, the absence of stillness is what steals time. A distracted mind works slower. A reactive mind creates unnecessary problems. Stillness improves efficiency because it reduces internal resistance. Stillness does not mean withdrawal from life. It means meeting life without inner turbulence. From stillness, action becomes precise, words become measured, choices become clearer. The mind no longer rushes ahead or lingers behind. Practicing stillness also strengthens self-control. When you sit without distraction, you observe impulses without obeying them. This observation builds restraint. Restraint carries into daily interactions. You respond instead of react. You pause before speaking. You choose rather than impulse. This changes outcomes across the day. The effects of stillness compound. A few minutes today reduce stress tomorrow. Reduced stress improves sleep. Better sleep improves focus. Improved focus reduces mistakes. Fewer mistakes reduce regret. Each link builds on the previous one. Stillness also alters how time is experienced. When the mind is calm, time feels spacious. When the mind is agitated, time feels scarce. Practicing stillness expands the felt sense of time, making the next 24 hours feel less pressured even if the schedule remains full. Emotional regulation is another result. Stillness teaches the nervous system that emotion does not require immediate expression. Feelings can arise and pass without action. This prevents emotional carryover. What happens in one moment does not dictate the mood of the entire day. Stillness practiced today also prepares the mind for uncertainty. A mind accustomed to quiet is less threatened by the unknown. It does not rush to fill gaps with worry. This resilience carries forward into future moments, reducing anxiety before it escalates. Even short periods of stillness have influence. A few conscious breaths before a task, a pause before responding, a moment of silence before sleep. These moments create continuity of calm. The next 24 hours are shaped not by intensity, but by consistency. Stillness also reconnects attention with the body. The body anchors the present. When attention is anchored, thoughts lose momentum. The mind becomes less predictive, less anxious. This grounded state persists beyond the practice itself. Practicing stillness today is not about escaping responsibilities. It is about meeting them from a steadier center. A centered person navigates the same challenges with less friction. Friction is what drains energy. Reduced friction creates endurance. The quality of the next 24 hours is not determined by external events alone. It is determined by the state in which those events are met. Stillness changes that state. It carries forward as patience, clarity, and restraint. When practiced now, its effects echo through every interaction, decision, and reaction that follows, quietly reshaping the flow of the day without force or effort.